statistically, the odds are against you. So you have to be asking yourself why you want to do this. And if you're not in it for the process, if you're in it for the result, which is, fame and money and awards and all that kind of thing, just save yourself the trouble and don't do it. You have to love movies and you have to love storytelling.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to One Story Building, where it is story time right now. Today's guest is film writer, director, and someone who I hope won't criticize my blurry, kept in the secrets background. It is Ben Young. Welcome, Ben Young, to One Story Building.
Hello, thank you for having me. I definitely won't criticize your background because I have the same.
Well, perfectly so. No one will know what we have hidden in the background. Our filmmaking secrets. So, as an Australian filmmaker, could you tell us all about the progress and the current state of Australian cinema, and why have Australians only been able to make like 3 good movies in 50 years?
Well, I mean, I don't really know the whole state of Australian cinema, but I do know that one of the challenging things about making movies in Australia is also one of the things that we're very fortunate to have, and that is, we have government-supported investment through Screen Australia and Screen West and Screen New South Wales and Film Victoria, and pretty much every state I think has one. So I guess one of the biggest challenges that we have is it's because it's largely taxpayer and government money. There is a lot of bureaucracy and there's a lot of politics involved. And so, I feel like pushing a political agenda in a film's narrative seems to be more important than the story itself. When it comes to dealing with these bureaucracies a lot of the time. And I think that that's probably why a lot of our stuff doesn't always land, because there always seems to be pressure to push a political agenda in the kind of movies that we make. And it's very difficult to get anything financed that isn't pushing a political agenda that suits whatever is politically trendy at the moment.
Really, so someone like yourself could submit a script and then the system jumps in and says, oh, can you have him say this, or can you have someone do this? They interfere.
It's less like that. It's more broad. I mean, someone like me would jump in and, the real focus is on diversity at the moment. And I'm a heterosexual, straight, white male. And so, the argument would be that I've had my turn. And so it's time to give that money to other people.
Other Australians?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Other Australians, perhaps from a different background to me.
All right. So in my experience of watching Australian films over the years, what do you think is the best Australian film of all time? And is it The Castle?
I don't know, there's so many great Australian films. I feel like I couldn't put it down just to one movie. There's so many fantastic ones, like, Wake and Fright from back in the day is great. Of course, The Castle is fantastic. I think the Australian film that, for me, I like the best is The Proposition.
Never heard of it. What is The Proposition?
You've never heard of The Proposition? Oh, God, it's not even old. It's written by Nick Cave and directed by John Hillcoat.
Is it about someone proposing to someone? Is it like a marriage romance movie?
It's an Australian Western, probably made in about 2007, if I was to hazard a guess. And it is, it's an Australian Western about an outlaw who is given a proposition by a local law enforcer to find a way to bring his outlaw brother to justice or risk consequences.
2007 isn't that recent. That's like the 1700s in internet years. You got
Yeah, I
to
suppose,
keep with the
you're
times.
right.
So,
Yeah, I'm showing my age now.
well, your even more recent movie, your 2016 movie, which I watched and loved in preparation for this, Hounds of
Oh,
Love,
thank you.
your directorial debut. It is a movie. Actually, you know what? I won't even say the synopsis. Could you give us a brief, quick, rapid fire synopsis of that movie before we jump into it?
Oh God, Hounds of Love is a thing of the past for me now, so I don't
Mm.
think about it much, and so you'll have to forgive me if the synopsis is a little messy. But it's essentially about a young girl who is struggling with her parents' divorce. She blames it on her mother, and in an act of rebellion, she runs away from home one night to go off to a party and finds herself entangled with a seemingly friendly couple who a male and female couple who end up abducting her and doing horrible things to her. And she realizes that in order to escape this vile situation, she's going to have to find a way to turn them against each other.
Mm.
So she begins picking away at the female abductor's emotional scabs to try and find a vulnerability she can use to gain her own freedom.
Right, yeah, it is quite the ghastly film. It's a horrible film, and I loved it. So
Yeah,
here's a segue. Dwayne the Rock, the Tooth Fairy Johnson. Apparently,
yes.
I heard this recently. He has in his film contracts that he is not allowed to lose a fight. And you know what?
Wow.
As horrible as it is for me to admit this, I bet that has worked out very well in his favor because it gives him a nice public image. But then you've got the actors in your film, Stephen Curry and Emma Booth, who play the horrible people. Excluding drawing experiences from your own life, how exactly do you direct actors to do such horrible things that I assume they haven't already done?
Oh, that's a really good question.
Thank
Thank you
you.
for asking it. Look, I suppose it because that film I wrote and directed, it came to very selective words on the page. And so the way that it was written, I think that it made it pretty clear that not a lot was going to be shown. It was more going to be implied. And so that, I think, would have made it easier for them to agree to do the movie in the first place. But secondly, it's all just about communication. So you just grab them, you get them in pre-production, usually just over a coffee or a beer or whatever it is that tickles your fancy, and you talk, you go, look, we've got to talk about this scene. This is what happens. You help them understand exactly why it is in the movie the way that it is, and answer any questions that they might have about it. And then you explain to them exactly how you're thinking of doing it. And then what I do is I then tell them why, in my mind, it needs to be that way in order to service the story. However, if they're not comfortable with that and can help me come up with an alternative way of doing it that they are comfortable with, I'm happy to do it that way. And so basically, I always give them a get out of jail free card, and they always know that they can stop the scene anytime that they want. Like when I'm doing a scene like some of the ones in Hounds of Love, you give the actors, like particularly Ashley Cummings, who just was a real trooper doing that, a safe word. And in our instance, I think the safe word was orange, because that's not a word that is likely to be improvised by the actors, if improvisation is something that they choose to do. So yeah, that's sort of a broad brushstrokes of how I would approach something like that.
I remember when I was watching it and it got to the horrific moments, I was horrified, but there was also part of me that was going along with the story, and I was like, yeah, fair enough. That's what those characters would do in that situation. Good, not good on them, but fair enough. I understand how they could get there. But then days later, I was remembering individual moments out of context, and I was more horrified remembering them out of context than building up to them through the story. And I guess that's the power of stories, where after minutes and an hour of being with these characters, you can understand why anyone would do such horrible things.
I also think that part of it was the approach that we took. And the movie actually isn't very revealing. Most of this stuff happens off camera. And so I think when you think back at it, by us not showing it on screen, we're forcing the audience to fill in the blanks. And the blanks that the audience fills in are always worse than anything that I could show them. And so then when hindsight plays in and you think about the movie, it comes across as a lot more aggressive, a lot more challenging and confronting than it was.
Yes, it is a very confronting movie, yes. And as much as I loved it, as much as I enjoyed watching it, as horrified as I was by it, I don't think I will ever watch it again because it is just so ghastly to watch. But I've seen Avengers Infinity War twice. But do you think that there's the deck is stacked in favor of people that make fun, happy movies compared to people that make serious dramas?
Yes, it is now. Particularly, with COVID being a thing, the real sentiment within the industry is that there's enough misery in the world that people don't want heavy movies. They want more, uplifting and lighter stuff. And so, yes, that's the sentiment that I am getting and the feedback that I'm receiving at the moment, that I should be focusing on something a little less grueling.
So what was the motivation to make a movie where a little girl gets kidnapped and tortured? Why do we need to see that?
Well, you don't need to see anything, really. It's up to you. If that's your jam, go watch it. But do you need to see it? No. And I don't think anyone needs to see any movie. But look, all I can say in regard to that is the reason that I became a filmmaker is because I love movies. And I particularly love confronting and challenging thrillers that create tension and keep me on the edge of my seat. Silence of the Lambs, I think, would be one of the most inspirational movies for me ever in regards to everything that I do. And it just got to the point where I was getting really excited about watching particular movies, and I'd watch them and they'd either be horrifically violent and have no tension at all, which I call gornography, or they just be kind of political thrillers that I just didn't give a shit about the stakes. So I just wanted to make the kind of thriller that me as an audience member wanted to go and watch. And that probably says a lot about me. And so, that's why I made it. I made it because as an audience member, I wasn't being satisfied by the movies that are in that genre at the time. So I wanted to fill that space.
I've said this many times doing this, that it can be tough, or it is tough being an artist, because you can't do art without taking from your own life and your own heart. So when it gets criticized, it's like they're criticizing you as a person more than just the art that you've created. But when people compliment it, they're complimenting you, so you're a good person.
Yes, very, very, very true. You come to learn to feel sorry for critics.
Well, you have to. It's the only way to get past all the negativity. Not that you've gotten any of that ever in your life, especially with.
No, I certainly have had my fair share of horrible reviews, and I think that the way to process them is to feel sorry for the critic. If they feel that that's how they need to speak about somebody who they've never met, who put their heart and soul into a movie, I feel sorry for them because they obviously got a lot of misery in their own life.
Well, that's one hell of a segue for the next question, which is about the 2018 movie Extinction, which you directed. Now, correct me if I'm wrong.
I'm wearing the Extinction jacket at the moment, I think. Yeah, this was the crew gift that they gave us in Serbia. So Extinction in English and Serbian underneath it.
Nice. Comfy? Worth it?
Very, very comfy. I wear it. This is sort of my nighttime shirt because it's a jacket because it's thin and comfortable, kind of, good for lounging about.
Oh, great. And free advertising if you're walking out in the street and people are like, is that a movie? Tell me about that movie.
Absolutely.
So the movie Extinction, you directed it, but you did not write it, correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay, excellent. That means that I get to criticize the writing and I can get your directorial opinion. So, well, for starters, I have been craving an Australian science fiction movie since before I was even born. And I saw this, and it was directed by an Australian, but it wasn't really that much of an Australian movie. It wasn't written anyway, so I was like, oh, so close and yet so far. But
no, I was the only Australian element in the whole movie.
well, yeah.
Me and Emma Booth, who was in Hounds of Love, also plays a small part in Extinction, and we were the only Australian elements.
Okay, well, I guess, I mean, do you think that Australia is due for a science fiction epic?
Yeah, of course. Absolutely. I think that, if you mix our history with the possibilities of the future and our landscape, I think it would be amazing to do something here. I mean, we've had a few. You could call The Rover a science fiction film. That was really good. But yeah, I'd like to see a really big one.
Right. Well, hopefully we can.
Obviously, we've got Mad Max.
Sure, I'll take it. I'll take as close as I can get. In Extinction, within the first 5 minutes of the movie, there's a scene where a husband and a wife are in bed, and the husband wakes up from a horrible nightmare, and they talk about it for about 20 seconds, and the wife turns to the husband and says, "I'm worried about you." And when I saw that, as I was watching that, I physically, verbally, literally, genuinely sighed out loud. To use the wise words of the robot devil from Futurama, you can't just have your characters announce how they feel. So in that moment or many other moments, how do you inject purpose and character into such vacuous, crappy lines?
Well, I didn't write that line, so
okay, good.
Look, I think it's the same with every regardless of the quality of the screenplay. It's never about the words that the characters are saying. It's always about the subtext, and it's always about the character's objective. And so, you never ever, I mean, directing 101 is you never give an actor a line read. So all I ever talk to actors about is what their character wants in the scene and how they're going to go about getting it. And so I can't remember directing that scene, to be perfectly honest. But that's what it would have been like. So we wouldn't have spoken about the line. It would have just been about what Lizzie was trying to do to Michael. And that was get him to get help. And so she was basically punishing him in the scene.
You said that you and Emma were the only Australian element in the movie Extinction. And I've always wondered, what do you think makes an Australian film other than it just being filmed in Australia?
Stephen Curry. No, I don't know. I mean, I think our landscapes obviously make it Australian. That's a thing. What makes an Australian film? Well, our stuff is usually a lot more contained because we don't have the money that a lot of the American and English films do. So they're small. Yeah, look, our movies are smaller and they are more character driven than they are plot driven, I think, generally speaking.
Yeah,
it's not that other countries don't do that. Our movies are sort of, there are a lot more. I'd say they lean more towards European sensibilities, generally speaking, than they do American sensibilities. When we, outside of the big tentpole movies like Mad Max, which, arguably it's only just an Australian film, and, Elvis is only just an Australian film, if at all, really. I mean, it was filmed here, but all the money came, I think our movies, generally speaking, are more character driven than they are plot driven. Usually when we try and do genre stuff, particularly without the backing of an American or international studio, it oftentimes doesn't work.
We have to make up for our lack of spaceships and laser beams, unfortunately.
Yes, exactly.
The classic response to the question, how do I learn how to make movies, is always just start making movies. But as someone who has taught classes in filmmaking, what do you do when someone asks you during the class, how do I make movies, that isn't just you saying, go and make a movie?
I think that that's a good question. One of the things to think about is like, well, why do you want to make movies? And you need to kind of do a lot of spiritual learning about yourself, because, you know, if it's a hobby, it could be a fun hobby, a very expensive and time-consuming one. But if you want to make a career out of it, you really have to ask yourself why. Because I think the statistic is, it's a horrible statistic. It's like something like 1 in 3,000 film graduates ever makes a full-length movie, and, you know, properly financed. You know, now a lot of people make movies on the mobile phone, but, or self-financed, but, you know, arguably, you know, are they really movies? But 1 in 3,000 makes a real movie, and of that, in this country, 1 in 10 makes a second movie, and in that, I think it's 1 in 20 makes a third. And so it's statistically, the odds are against you. So you have to be asking yourself why you want to do this. And if you're not in it for the process, if you're in it for the result, which is, you know, fame and money and awards and all that kind of thing, just save yourself the trouble and don't do it. You have to love movies and you have to love storytelling. And so once you come to terms with that, yeah, go out and start making stuff, I think.
Yeah, well, my education is in filmmaking, but then years after that, I just gave it up and became a theatre guy. And when I think about my
God, I'm sorry that I said I don't like theatre before.
That's fine. I interview other theatre people who say that movies suck, so take that.
Yeah. Well, you know, arguably they're probably right at the moment. I think that I just read Quentin Tarantino's wonderful book, Cinema Speculation, and he is he states in that he thinks that this particular period in time is among the worst in history in regards to the quality of movies, and I tend to agree with him.
Well, even when a play sucks, it's raw because it's right there and it's live. And I mean, is there a better? Is it better? I mean, this is a rhetorical question, but you can answer it if you want. Is there,
yeah,
like, what's better, to watch a movie by yourself or in a crowd of people?
I think that they're designed to be watched with people.
Mm-hmm. Well, there you go.
So, you know, I personally, to this day, even if I am by myself and I do go to the cinema by myself, I much prefer going to the cinema and watching a movie than I do at home, because there's something for me ritualistic about walking into the lobby and smelling the popcorn and, you know, and then sitting in a dark room and watching trailers and ads, and then, you know, being completely immersed in this thing where you're not allowed to look at your phone or take a phone call. You can't pause it, you know. There's something that I love about doing that. And I would pick that over watching a movie at home any old day of the week.
Yeah, I don't get people who make home theaters. It's like either use your either go on your phone or go to a movie theater. It's like this weird middle ground.
I agree. I can't ever see myself really having a home theater.
So, being a theatre person, when I look back at my education and what I was focusing on, I see my entire school life as essentially just being drama school, because that's what I was focusing on. But taking out education completely, what kind of life do you think someone needs to have or give themselves to make themselves an exceptional film writer, or just a writer in general?
Oh, wow. That's a really good question. I mean, you have to watch a lot of movies. That's a fact. It's just amazing how many people I meet who are trying to be screenwriters or whatever, who don't watch anything, which is just baffling to me, you know? But so you have to watch movies and you have to love movies. But yeah, you absolutely need to have had life experience. And I think one of the things that I can often tell when I'm reading scripts is when there is zero lived experience from the writer in the characters that they are portraying, because the characters on the page are just a mixture of a whole bunch of different characters I've seen in different movies, rather than there being anything personal in there. So I think that when I write, and I'm kind of hypothesizing about this, I've never actually spoken about out loud, I think, until now, but I think I tend to give every character who I'm writing something personal to do with my life, so one of them might have a hobby which is a hobby of mine, and so I can connect to them in that way. And another one might have had an experience in their life that is similar to my experience, that sort of thing. And so I think that you have to find a way to make all of it personal, because that way it comes across as authentic. And so I suppose the more experiences that you've had with life, the more interesting and authentic and diverse you can make the characters that you write.
Yeah, we're living in the age where this current generation of writers learned how to write academically in a class rather than writing about their life and their own experiences, and we're reaping the results.
Yeah, and it's interesting, like I still write all the time. I write every day, for hours, every single day, even on weekends. It's stuff that'll probably never see the light of day because I love doing it, but I also get such a kick from even rereading my own stuff, because the more I live, the longer I've lived, the significantly better I've got with writing. I get significantly better at writing every single year, just because I've had more experiences.
So going back to Hounds of Love, I noticed that there were scenes in there. For example, there's a shot that takes place in a school where the camera is on a dolly and it's moving ever so closely towards the characters. And there's also a scene where the two kidnappers are in bed. I think two people are in bed and the camera is above them, facing down. And I'm thinking, surely there comes a point during the whole filming process where you want to just say, you know what, forget it. Just plonk the camera onto a tripod and then shoot it straight on in like in an easy way. But what motivates you to film in such an advanced way?
Oh, well, it's about creating a sense of tone and getting inside the character's head. So every camera position and every camera movement, every shot is designed to try and get the audience inside the emotional state of the character whose point of view the scene is from. And so that shot, like a shot moving in on somebody, normally it brings, the audience inside somebody's head. And so it's a great way just to show the audience that they're thinking about something, and a shot above like that, kind of, that a shot like that above from the couple in bed means a few things. It's sort of a God point of view. And so it's sort of there to let you know that the character feels like she's being watched by another, like God, like she's got eyes on her. And the composition of that shot also shows space between the two. And so, it sets up the dynamic of the emotional state of the relationship a little more than just plonking a camera would.
Are those kinds of filming techniques things that you would learn or have learned yourself in film school, or do you just take a risk thinking that it might work and then you just realize that it does and you keep on doing it?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, film school, I don't want to shit all over it. Like, it was worth going to. I mean, I went twice. I have a BA and a master's in film. But like, I don't feel that it ever gets that advanced. You basically learn it from watching movies, and you begin to train yourself on, like, when you begin to feel something as an audience member, when you're watching something, you go, oh, I'm really feeling something now. Why am I feeling that? And so you start to notice, what the camera is doing, and where the lens is and what kind of lens it is. And so you begin to notice the techniques work in other things. And so you borrow, I suppose.
Years ago, I was on a film set, and something as simple as the director, who was a new director, he didn't say action, he said go. and it was really confusing, and it added so many more minutes and maybe even hours onto the filming because people would just like go, what does that mean? What is it like? So, but in your experience, your life experience being on a set since you were like 12, have you noticed a change, a shift in the decorum of how a film set operates over the years?
Yeah, I have. And I mean, the big fundamental shift is that, we mostly don't shoot on film anymore. It's all digital, and that is significantly cheaper. And so, a take isn't as valuable. And so if someone screws up a take, doesn't matter as much as it used to, because all you're losing now is time. You're not losing, very expensive film stock that you only have a limited amount of. So for that reason, things are a little less tense. And that has changed certainly the approach that I have. I don't always cut anymore because I don't have to. And so, I do what you call, series takes, where I just, rather than say cut, I go, okay, go back to your first position and let's start it again from here, but do this, that, or the other. And, the reason I don't cut it is because when you say cut, then all the crew run in and everyone wants to change anything. But when you just series it and let things move on like that, which you can do on digital, it helps the actor a lot, I think, and just keeps you in the rhythm. So there's that. I guess one of the negative things which has changed now, I certainly much prefer to be on sets now than I used to, because digital is a lot less stressful. It's a lot less stressful to work in than film was. And so generally speaking, sets are not as tense as they used to be. And I've noticed generally people are nicer to each other now than they used to be. But I also think that the discipline is not the same as it used to be. So film sets used to be a lot more regimented, and there were a lot less mistakes, because if there was a mistake, you were costing the production a lot more than just time. And so, yeah, there used to be more discipline.
I read an article about you saying that your next motion picture was a film called Devil's Peak, and it was advertised as starring Billy Bob Thornton and Robin Wright, and that was all of the information. And I thought, okay, what's it about? Who wrote it? What's going on? And I thought, is this just what movies, at least movie advertising, is nowadays, where I know that face, I know that name. I mean, voice actors get this the hardest, where you've got like Happy Feet 2, where you've got Matt Damon, who's the voice of a prawn, because you just had to have Matt Damon as the voice of a prawn. But do you think that there is a need for a bit of a shift, where people behind the camera should be put more into the spotlight, and people that are the actors need to be pulled back a little bit?
Oh, interesting question. I mean, I don't know about that, because, unfortunately, I think that it's about money at the end of the day. And, you got your rock star directors like Martin Scorsese and Steven Spielberg and Quentin Tarantino and Fincher and, a few others, who people might go to watch a movie just because these people made it. But generally speaking, audiences go to movies more for the people in it than they do the people behind the camera. So I think so long as that's where the money is coming from, that's where the focus is going to remain.
I guess it's the game that you have to play if you want to stay in the game.
Yes, it is.
So what is next for Ben Young?
I unfortunately, like after I make the movie, I'm largely left out of all of the conversations about what the poster is going to look like, what the trailer is going to be. Well, they try to involve you, but they never listen to you, and they end up marketing the movie in whichever way they seem fit. They see fit.
Have you ever had any
Which
say
is very, very frustrating.
into the direction of a trailer for one of your movies?
What's that?
Have you how much are you involved in the creation of a trailer for a movie?
Oh, look, I've been very disappointed with the, they allow you lip service, really. I've given feedback on Hounds of Love. I don't think I was involved at all in any of the trailers. I don't even think I was asked for an opinion. Extinction, it just so happened that the trailer that Netflix made, I was thrilled with. You know, I liked. I wasn't over the moon with how the movie turned out due to some decisions that, you know, I got overruled in by people above me. So when I saw the trailer, I thought, wow, you know, the trailer is good. I like the trailer. And then the new movie, I was asked an opinion, Devil's Peak. I gave notes on the trailer, but no one listened to any of them.
Well, what is next for Ben Young? Where can we go to find out more about your future films?
So what is next for me? I'm trying to get, like, I've decided, you know, having done the last two movies I've done, I didn't write. And I really wanted to write the next one. So I've got one that I've just written that is sort of doing the rounds now, and I'm hoping to find a producer and, you know, other people I need to get that thing happening off the ground. So there's that. And I'm writing I've got like 4 active scripts that I have written or am writing at the moment for various different people all around the world that I would love to do. But the immediate thing that I'm doing next, starting very soon, is I'm doing 2 TV shows back to back. And so I'll be out of the movie world until next year.
Is there a huge difference between the creation of a TV show and creation of a movie?
Yeah, they're so different that it's they're kind of unparalleled, really. Movies are good. They're great. Movies are a fantastic creative outlet, but your resources are more limited. And it just seems to be, in my experience, like more corners. It's just a dodgy situation, and it's really there's a lot of heavy lifting for the director, and there's a lot of frustration. Whereas television, you know, they usually have more than one director on a show. And so by the time you come in, unless you're directing the first block, it's all cast. All the crew is there. Most of the locations are picked. So you got to like it or lump it. You know what I mean? You have to find a way to make it work within those within the parameters that have been chosen for you by other people. But that kind of means a lot less work for you. And it also means a lot less is at stake, because, you know, very rarely, unless it's kind of auteur television where the director might do the whole series, you know, people don't pay much attention to who directs TV. So, you know, and so the director doesn't, you can get away, like if I was to direct a TV show that absolutely bombed and was critically panned, it would affect my career less than it would affect that of the producers and the writers. Whereas if I do a movie that is panned, that's a bad glitch against my name. So directors can get away with a lot more in television than they can in movies. Movies, they're more front and center than they are in TV. You're more of a gun. Yeah, and it's so interesting in regards to making a movie. You need so much to go right in order for the movie to even be half decent, and you need so little to go wrong for it to be a disaster. And there's so much luck involved in the result either way when you're working on a movie.
I've heard the phrase that a movie is a director's art, a TV show is a writer's art, and theatre is an actor's art.
Yeah, something like that. I would argue that theatre is also a writer's art, you know. Whereas, you know, so like, you know, yes, forgetting theatre for a minute because I don't know that much about it, but in movies, for instance, the director, in my experience anyway, you don't have to go and get approval if you want to get an actor to change some lines, and you get a lot more say over things in the script and, you know, creative decisions like that, and you're often involved more in development. Whereas in TV, more often not, it's your job to shoot the script as it is, you know. And I've done TV before where I've been told not to change a word by the producers, and that's fine. That's their prerogative. They're employing me to do a job, and I've done other TV, which gave me a little bit more freedom. So yeah, but ultimately, you're working for the writers in TV, and you're not in a movie. The writer is working for you.
And just like that, we have reached the last question, which I always ask at the end of this thing that I do, and that is, of course, why are stories important?
Oh, well, I mean, stories are important. I mean, that they preserve history, you know, apart from highlighting successes and failures of our species throughout the dawn of time and being able to pass on knowledge. They are a wonderful preservation of human success and human failures.
Well, Mr. Ben Young, thank you so much for coming on to One Story Building.
Thank you so much for having me and for asking such wonderful, considered questions.